Morning, all. So we're going to start with the item at the bottom of the board. You'll notice I'm wearing my Johnny Canuck jersey. I got this from the Canucks team store 4 years ago now. And it's interesting because this was a jersey they had, and I was like, that's gorgeous, and I wanted it, and I grabbed it. It was the last one they had in the store. It was on sale, too. They had it on for dirt cheap because they were getting it out of there. The video for the announcement was on a green background. I don't think that's by accident. So I would think this will be the jersey for at least on some level, this will be the jersey for the Abbotsford Canucks. So, Johnny Canuck is back. There have been plenty of Canuck fans that wanted this as the main logo. I felt like for the Vancouver Canucks, I don't think it would work. But on an AHL level, sure. But I had to laugh, though, because Abbotsford Canucks, I immediately think back to Poochie, where it's like, okay, so you have mouse, cat, dog. I don't know. Give him a name like, I don't know, something Poochie, but not stupid. And then he leaves the room, and the writers are all like, so Poochie it is then, right? All right. So I just picture the Canucks get it, and it's like, all right, so, I don't know, name him something like Canucks, but, just something a little bit different. He leaves the room, and they go, so Canucks with Johnny Canuck as the main logo works? All right, work is done. So, yeah, it's fine. And I already have a jersey to wear to the games. They'll be like, where did Shannon get that Abbotsford jersey? I guess you could do that with an A. I guess you could turn the V upside down and make it an A. But then it would look like his legs, wouldn't it? It looked like you stuck Johnny Canuck's head on like a little pair of legs. There's no body. Bodiless Johnny Canuck. That might be disturbing to both fans and the opponents. Where's their mascot's legs? Oh, the mascot. That could be either terrifying or hilarious, couldn't it? Anyways, we'll see. People know my bent is towards terrifying mascots or humorous mascots. So, Oily the oil can and all that. I don't think that would work for the Abbotsford Canucks, but sure. So, yeah, that was announced this morning. On to other news. The stuff that I was waiting to talk about. Kevan Miller has announced his retirement. Not really all that surprising. He's missed a lot of games with injury. It's not entirely surprising that he's wrapping it up. Plays 352 games in his career. 13 goals, 58 assists, 71 points. Dependable, reliable, defensive defenseman. And it opens another hole on that blue line for Boston. But, reportedly, they've worked out a long-term deal with Brandon Carlo. So Carlo will be staying in Boston. That's kind of what I was waiting for. And then I saw the Abbotsford Canucks news. And I was like, all right, let's just go ahead and get this done. And we'll come back to another news video later as needed about Brandon Carlo and how much money he gets and for how long. And Don Sweeney makes people a little bit nervous when it comes to this kind of thing. So, not Benning nervous, but nervous. So, yeah, we'll see how much he gets. But apparently, he and the Bruins have agreed to a long-term extension, which I agree with. Carlo's been fantastic. I know he's missed a lot of games with injury himself, but he missed games after getting smoked by Wilson. I mean, that would knock any player out. So, yeah, that's good news. Zach Hyman. There's no deal coming for Zach Hyman, and Leaf fans are not entirely impressed with it. I've said this before, and I'll say this again. Zach Hyman, to me, whatever team's picking him up, a lot of grit, a lot of effort. I don't know how many goals he'll score somewhere that's not Toronto. And so if a GM comes out and pays him like he's going to be a 25 or 30 goal scorer, and if they envision him being a winger on their top two lines, they may end up being disappointed. So we'll see. This may be a case where if Kyle Dubas sees him leave and he gets a huge contract somewhere else, we may come back to it and say, you know what, Kyle Dubas was right. There's always some risk to that, though, because now Toronto needs to go out and replace Zach Hyman, right? And apparently there have been talks with Freddie Anderson, but no offer yet. And we're only a couple weeks out from free agency. So I would think if they're really serious about wanting to keep Anderson around, they would have started talking dollar figures. And the fact that there hasn't been an offer made tells me that it's probably not going to happen. I mean, if Toronto goes into next year with basically the same roster they had that missed out on getting out of the first round this year, same goalie tandem, same everything, but they lose Zach Hyman, I don't know how happy Toronto fans would be about that. I think they'd be kind of disappointed. Sergei Fedorov, Hall of Famer in the NHL, has been named to coach CSKA Moscow. Sergei Fedorov is one of those guys that I always thought would probably make a really good coach. He played forward in the NHL, and he played on the blue line. Scotty Bowman trusted enough to put him on the blue line. I would think that if you want a coach that can coach any aspect of the game as a forward or a defenseman, Fedorov's the guy. One of the most complete players to ever play the game, right up there with Datsuk. I don't know what it is with Detroit, but they seem to be able to get those guys who were complete players, right? But yeah, so Fedorov takes over there. And yeah, we'll see how things go for him. So Minnesota. I was reading this in The Athletic today. So here's what happens. Bill Guerin, he calls Ryan Suter. It ends up going to voicemail. So he's not able to get Ryan Suter. He calls Zach Parise. Gets on the phone with Parise, and he's like, well, we're buying you out. And Parise's like, all right, well, you know, these things happen. He seemed to be more understanding. And he's okay. He's like, yeah, these things happen. He was surprised, but he was relieved too. You know, he was playing fourth line minutes. He was a healthy scratch at points this year as well, and feels like he can still give something at the NHL level, and now he gets a chance to go improve himself somewhere else. Don't be surprised if he ends up in New Jersey. The Islanders obviously will come calling. Maybe Toronto ends up calling him as well, because again, they may very well be looking, let's replace Zach Hyman with Zach Parise. Yeah, okay. Anyways, but yeah, he was understanding. So, after Guerin gets off the phone, he calls Ryan Suter and gets Suter on the phone. And he's like, hey, so they bought me out. And Ryan's like, I got a missed call from Bill Guerin. Wonder if they're buying me out too. And laughter ensues because they're not going to buy both of us out. So they get off the phone. Guerin gets a hold of Suter. Suter was not pleasant with the news. Not like Parise at all. And apparently hung up the phone on Guerin. I'm picturing probably some cursing and swearing. May have started with, are you serious? And Parise himself saying he feels that Suter's still a top four defenseman in the NHL. Very surprised they bought out Suter. And yeah, there's something to be said for the fact that now they need to go out and replace Ryan Suter. And they don't have a lot of cap space. The funny thing is, Bill Guerin himself saying, well, it buys us cap space now, but slowly, we lose cap space as it goes along. And then he laughed and goes, well, quickly we lose the cap space. Yeah, you lose it next year. They get a $166,000 break for each contract 2 years from now. Like, it's just, it's insane. This is why when I did a video on buyouts a few days ago, I was like, well, that buyout Parise. Look, this doesn't make any sense. Apparently, Bill Guerin watched that video and went, hey, I can buy out Parise. I should buy out Suter, too. Two wrongs make a right. So, yeah. Apparently Parise was cordial and was like, yep, these things happen. And Suter was like, ha, 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 click. So that's what we used to do with phones back in the day when we had, like, dial phones and you'd hang up. There was a button to hang up. You don't, but anyway. Jeff Skinner has waived his no movement clause. So, again, this is why when it comes to the, who do you think is going to get taken in the expansion draft? We don't know who's waived their no movement clauses. We don't completely know yet who's waived. Skinner becomes the latest. Seattle's not taking Skinner's contract. Going to go out on a limb and say there's no chance that Skinner gets picked up by Seattle. And Skinner's a guy that absolutely could bounce back on some level if Buffalo could move him, but that contract makes that virtually impossible. Even without a flat cap, I don't know if you can move Skinner's contract. So yeah, Buffalo, that's one more forward they could protect. Or, and you know, maybe they go 4-4. They have 4 defensemen, 4 forwards. We'll see. There's a lot of debate over which teams are going to protect 8 skaters. Some debate about whether or not Nashville might protect 5 defensemen. Pierre LeBrun made a good example of that where he said, you know, they like their top 3, obviously. They also don't want to lose Fabro. And they also really liked what Carrier did for them, you know, down the stretch and in the playoffs. So they don't want to lose him either. So that would be 5 defensemen for Nashville. Now, on the Colorado front, Gabe Landeskog is disappointed that a deal isn't done. Now, think about this, because I've seen people saying, oh, I could see Landeskog here or here or here. Landeskog doesn't get signed by Colorado. Does Sakic protect him? Does Sakic protect a guy that he knows is going to potentially leave the organization? Does he protect him in a way of saying, hey, Gabe, we want to keep you on the team? Or does he look at the situation and say, I don't see a way that I can sign him? Ask around and see if anybody wants his rights. And right now, I would think most teams would say, I can't do that. We've already got our protected list figured out. Do you leave him exposed and leave the chance for maybe Seattle takes him? You don't have to worry about losing Graves. And Seattle would not pass on Landeskog. There's zero chance that Ron Francis would pass on Gabe Landeskog. So it was one of those things I wonder about. Like, okay, so do you protect him and then potentially just lose him for nothing anyways? So then you've lost an asset to Seattle, which could be Graves. And then you lose Landeskog as a free agent as well. This is where Colorado, the rubber meets the road. They built themselves up. They became a contender. Now you have to stay a contender, and it gets more and more difficult. Luke Richardson has signed a 3-year extension with the Montreal Canadiens. He's going to be there for at least the next 3 years. Luke Richardson, again, I think he'd make an excellent head coach. I get the feeling that he's happy as an assistant coach. And of course, with what Montreal did and with how far they went, you keep the coaching staff. You can't justify firing coaching staff after a run like that. Minor trade made today between Edmonton and Carolina. Carolina picks up Dylan Wells, a goaltender who's a restricted free agent, in exchange for future considerations. So why would Carolina pick up a goaltender? Well, they have Reimer, they have Mrazek, who are both UFAs, right? So those don't qualify to meet expansion requirements. Now, Seattle can absolutely take Mrazek. They can sit down with Peter Mrazek. They can negotiate a contract with him and take him. But they have to have somebody who's either under contract for next year, who's exposed, or, in this case, Dylan Wells is a restricted free agent. All Carolina has to do is give him a qualifying offer, and he meets expansion exposure requirements. So watch for other deals like this to happen where you're looking going, why would they do that? And you'll see that it's because it gives them some requirement for the expansion draft fulfillment, right? So yeah, the Oilers, that future considerations, I would think after expansion that might be a 6th round, 7th round, or just the next time they make a trade, people are like, well, that looked pretty good for the Oilers. How'd that happen? And this may very well be how it happens. But again, we'll see. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below regarding the very creative naming of the Abbotsford Canucks. I don't remember voting for Canucks. I think I had Canucks at like 3rd on my list. I think I voted for Aviators. I think that was the one I went with. Just, Abbotsford Aviators sounds right. It's different. But Abbotsford Canucks, there you go. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.